Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and today's video is the Offlane tier list for patch 7.39b. So the first hero in the S tier is going to be Axe, and this hero is, I think, always a pretty good pub hero. Like, no matter if it's even like B tier, C tier, if it's not that great at high MMRs or whatever in the meta, I still think it's a pretty good pub hero because it's a reliable offlaner that always has good impact with blink called. Like, that's always going to be good, especially once you get your blink, and that's kind of the issue with the hero in general. Sometimes you can have weak lanes, sometimes if you just don't have a good game for the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, then all those items that you need, like the blink, the blade mail, maybe a vanguard, if that's delayed too much, you just seemingly have no impact. But if you stomp the game, if you have a good lane, if you're farming super quickly, then you just have impact as soon as you get the blink throughout the entirety of the game, and you're just insane. You do ridiculous damage, you're super tanky, you're hard to deal with, and you can never count out that BKB piercing stun. And so that's the big thing with Axe. But why this hero is actually S tier this patch is, if you didn't know, they recently buffed the hero. Not huge buffs, but one pretty significant buff they did was they actually increased the slow on battle hunger, especially level 1. It's now 18%. I think it was 15 before. And that's pretty big because usually you only go 1 point in this ability. That's like the typical thing. You just skill this level 1 to just harass the enemy, be annoying. But that can be very, very important, especially when you put this on an enemy support or even you're contesting a rune. That can really help your early laning stage to just propel you to have a better game overall. So that's a huge reason why this hero's S tier. I also think that there are some people sometimes that are maxing battle hunger now, which is, I don't really think that's a great pub thing. Like, you have to make sure that it's actually a good game to do that, and you have to make sure that you have coordination with your team, and you're also getting off to a really good start, and you can run enemies down. Like, it has to be a very specific time to do that. I wouldn't really do that in most of your pub games, though. I would just go for 1 point in this because it's a really good value point, especially now after the buff. And then just go for your typical, counter helix, and then maxing Berserker's Call and that kind of stuff. And just really, really trying to get that early blink, blade mail, or vanguard blink, or whatever it is, as soon as possible so that you can have as much impact in the mid game and then just scaling into late game. That's really what Axe does. And I think the reason why it's S tier is because that laning stage is a little bit more secure now, just with the way the map is, with the level 1 battle hunger, with being able to cut waves and stuff like that. It is just very, very good and reliable. So that's pretty much Axe. Nothing super different. It's just a very good hero right now because the laning stage is much more secure. Then the second hero here is Legion Commander. And it feels like Axe and Legion Commander have just been hanging around at like the A tier for the last like year or so. This hero is still very good and has been very good ever since like 2 years ago they switched what overwhelming odds and press the attack does. I probably say this every tier list, but basically ever since they switched that, if you didn't know, the overwhelming odds used to kind of be aimed in like a certain AoE, like it wasn't just around you, and this would actually give you movement speed. And then this was the thing that would give you attack speed, and it still did that like debuffing and all that kind of stuff and healing. But now that they switched it, like 2 years ago, when overwhelming odds is now cast around, you can cast it during the duel, and it is the thing that gives you attack speed. It just makes the hero so much better. And I think even though they've kind of nerfed it here or there, they've buffed it here or there, it's just always hanging around at A tier. And now that it's a good patch when everything else, like the tides and all the things, the Beastmasters, all that kind of stuff got nerfed from last patch, this hero's just kind of risen to the top as being very, very good. Plus, I think because obviously I'm making these tier lists as a pub tier list, this hero is just amazing in a lot of pubs. It's not until you get like at least past 4K, maybe even past 5 or 6K, that people really start playing well around Legion Commander. Like, you could probably spam Legion Commander in the offlane and just get right to 6K, because it's not until those later portions of MMR where people get good enough that they kind of group together, they understand that Legion's going to try to pick them off, and they kind of know how to play around it a little bit better, and it's really hard to actually get farm, plus kind of not show yourself on the map, that kind of thing. But up until that point, you could literally play this. You're basically playing carry from the off lane, but you have a good laning stage. You can snowball super hard. You become a right clicker, but you're also a pick off hero. You just like do everything you want from a pub hero with this hero. So I think mainly because this hero is, or this is a list that's a pub hero tier list, it's also just good in general. Like, if you go to Dota 2 Pro Tracker or look at any of the statistics, it's also a very, very good hero. But again, I think it's also because, like, even with the Axe buff and the small changes, those aren't huge. It's just that a lot of the other offlaners have been nerfed, and these heroes have been hanging around at A tier, so now they're just very, very good. Then the next hero is Centaur, and this is another hero that's just kind of been hanging around as being pretty good. I think it might have been S tier like a year ago, and then it was just hanging around A tier after some nerfs. And they did give it some small buffs in the last 2 patches, like 7.39 and 39b, but it was very small stuff. Like, I think the cast range of double edge and these kinds of things, those usually aren't big enough to like propel it to be amazing. It's just the fact that also there's a neutral item that's very good as well. I think it's the chipped vest. That's basically like a blade mail. So now you can get, if you want to get blade mail, you can have retaliate, that neutral item plus blade mail or any other tanky items, and that's just like really, really good for the hero, the fact that that's in the game. But again, the same thing with those other heroes, the fact that Tide and Beastmaster and all these other offlaners kind of got nerfed, they're not nearly as good now, just propelled all these other guys up to the top, especially with those small buffs where other things got nerfed. And so that's why this hero is at that S tier, just like those other heroes, where it's just a typical standard offlaner, you know, Axe, Centaur, Legion. Typical standard offlaners, very good in pubs, very straightforward what you're going to be doing with this hero. You're just going to be getting tanky and being extremely annoying, eventually getting Shivas, probably a Shard, eventually even Heart, and just be very hard to bring down, and they kind of can't ignore you. That's really what you want to be focusing on with this hero, is you don't want to be so tanky but do no damage. You want to get to the point where you like have a Shivas, you have a Shard, you have items that allow you to do damage and be very annoying. Like, yes, you're stun and your blink, whatever, that's fine. But it's about doing so much damage that it's like, okay, well, we actually have to take care of this hero. We have to try to kill the hero, but we don't really want to, because this hero is like 5-6k HP or something, you know what I mean? And that is really how you have the most impact on Centaur, because if you're just like running around and all you can contribute is a stun in your ult, and they don't really have to focus you, well, then you're really not getting the most out of the hero. You want to have a good enough game where you're getting items and you're doing real damage in the fights, and real damage with, obviously, double edge, with your retaliate, like forcing them to focus you, having so much health that you don't die, all that kind of stuff. And that's the ideal game. And you can really get to that point with this hero because of the way that early game is just better for you to scale than in a lot of other situations in the past. But it still does a lot of those same things. Actually, the Ags cart 2 is not like the most insane, terrible meme thing anymore. It's actually semi-viable, so that's another reason that this hero is pretty good, because people are figuring out that actually this can be good with like a Lina or a Drow or some other heroes here and there, where before it was just like, this is terrible, why would you ever buy it? So that's a big reason also why Centaur is pretty good right now. And then lastly for S tier, we have Dawnbreaker, and this again, I think it's a similar theme for all the S tier heroes right now, is they were good. Maybe they were S tier like a year ago or 6 months to a year ago, like a few patches ago, a few big patches ago, they were really good, the best. And then they got small nerfs, not a ton, and they went back down to A or B. And then with everything else getting nerfed in this past patch, and these things either getting small buffs or just kind of staying the same, then they just rose to the top. And that's the same thing with Dawnbreaker. It feels like Dawnbreaker has been good for like a year. There was a time, maybe it was like December, November, or whenever it was, that people didn't really know that Dawnbreaker was good, and she just like surged back into the meta, and people were like, oh wait, this hero's actually broken. And then they nerfed it a little bit, but now it's come back. Just because, again, it was just hanging around A tier, everything else got nerfed, and now this hero is just really good. So again, you're not doing anything crazy different than what you were before. They also buffed this Break of Dawn passive, where before it was just like in lighting up the whole map when it turned day. Now that actually has some more impact other than just lighting up the map. You basically just get more damage the closer it is to the turn from night to day, which is pretty cool. It's a cool idea in general, but I think that just amps up what this hero is able to do. So it just does all the same things. Ags is still really good late in certain situations. It's great that you can farm on the other side of the map like a Spectre. You just have a really reliable laning stage. You do insane damage. Like, you can honestly stomp lanes super hard. You're hard to bring down. You're really tanky, even against like a Drow or other ranged heroes that can be annoying. You have a gap close, and if they put themselves out of position, you can just Celestial Hammer onto them, Starbreaker them, and if your support is not completely brain dead, you will get kills. Like, you can snowball the game out of control. And then even if you're not having a great game, you can usually catch back up and farm by being on the other side of the map from your team. And I think that's also in pubs such a good thing to have. The ability to split the map and be anywhere you want and just constantly farming, while also being able to just instantly be at the team fight. You can just never count that out in pubs, because obviously, like, map positioning and being with your team is super important. Like, you need to have the numbers to win the fights or the gank, but sometimes you don't really want to be with your team because you think what they're doing is bad. Well, here, you don't really have to care about that. You can just do whatever you know is right or whatever you think is right, and then whatever they're doing, if it's a bad situation and they feed or something's not good, you don't have to participate, and if it is good, you can. And I think that's perfect for pubs. That's another reason why this hero, I think just in general, if it is good, it's amazing in pubs. And so that is Dawnbreaker. That's another reason why this hero is really, really good. Honestly, I feel like these are just the typical offlaners here. And then Dawnbreaker, I don't think it's a specialist hero necessarily, but it is a little bit of a different style than these other heroes. So if you're not like, if you're a newer hero or lower MR, it is going to take some getting used to actually be good with the hero. I would also say that specifically with this hero, the lower MMR you go, the more you can afford to go for a more carry build with like Deso and AC and all these other things. But the higher MMR you go, the more greedy that is, and you kind of want to be a little bit more team oriented at times, because going for like straight up Deso and stuff can just not feel as good. Like going for Echo Saber and these kinds of things, just getting more tanky, going for Blade Mail, that stuff, that's something you want to be doing at higher MMRs, because if you go for full like glass cannon, that just can feel really bad, especially if you have other carries like that are also glass cannon-y. So just keep that in mind. But I think the fact that this hero has a lot of diverse ways of playing is a very big benefit as well. Then next we have A tier, and the first hero is Mars, and this hero is just always in the meta somehow. It's just always getting picked a ton. People love to play it, and it is always a classic good offlaner, even if it's not technically a great patch for it or the win rate is lower. It's just because it gets picked so much, and it is so good. Like, you can go for the full team fight control if you need to. You can go for like Yules and Blink and BKB and Refresher and just have no damage, or you can even go for like a Deso or AC or other things like that if you want to have damage. So the fact that you have those two paths is really good, just like I said with Dawnbreaker. Plus, just having this ultimate is something that you can never count out. It's kind of similar to Magnus or these other ultimates where, you know, it's always going to be good at some point. I just think that because Mars has more utility in certain ways, and you don't have to rely on the ult, it just makes this hero good overall. It has secured laning stage with his two other abilities, great farming in that case. There's so many things about the hero just make it classic and good. It feels like it's never going to be D tier unless they absolutely destroy the hero. Then we have Bristleback, a great hero right now. Another one that it felt like it always was getting a little bit of nerfed here, and like nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, but it just keeps coming back into the meta because people realize, oh wait, the Ags is really good. People realize the Snot Rocket is still very good. That facet is still actually amazing. And so it's still extremely viable in the offlane. Now, offlaners are picking more of the Snot Rocket thing. The carry version of Bristleback is more for like the Ags and the, what's that called again? Yeah, Seeing Red. That's more of the carry version, but if you want, you can totally go for the carry version from the offlane and still get the Ags. Like, you can totally do that. There's no reason that you, like, it's not like, oh, I'm griefing if I'm going for that version. It's just that I would be a little bit wary, just depending on the game, depending on what you feel like you need in the game. Like, does your team need damage, or do you want to go full tank, control, slow, minus armor? Like, that would be the only consideration. But regardless of which one you pick, it is very, very good right now, doing all the same things that Bristleback's done for a while. Then Kunkka, another very, very good hero. The only thing I don't love about the hero in the offlane is you want to be going Blade Mail Radiance with this hero, but from the offlane, obviously as a position 3, being the third farm priority, going for that Radiance is just super, super greedy. So it's kind of a hard thing. Like, do I really want to go that? I think if you want to have the most impact, you want to go Blade Mail Radiance. Okay, that is really what you want to go. It is very greedy again. But from the offlane, sometimes it's going to be better to go like straight Ags or for other more team-oriented items. You just have to kind of decide based on matchups, again, similar to like, what am I doing with Bristleback, Mars, Dawnbreaker? Am I going team-oriented? Am I going like more greedy? And so that is a consideration. I just feel like sometimes, because I spammed this hero pretty effectively, actually, the last patch, because it was still very good. And I think that sometimes the Ags and going for team-oriented items, if your team is not playing around you, if they're not fighting all in one place, if the enemy has a lot of mobility and they can just get out of the area of your boat, I mean, I know you have X, but still, then it can feel kind of bad. So that's the difference there. But then if you're like forced to not go for that team-oriented build, you'd almost rather have something else in the offlane because you just have that one combo and that's it. And then if you're not doing any damage with the Radiance or other like right-click kind of stuff, then what really are you doing? So that's kind of the issue I have with Kunkka. But if it's a perfect game where the Ags and your team-oriented stuff just buffs up your team and you just have insane damage anyway, you would just snowball the game and just they can never fight into you. And then if you're able to go for that Blade Mail Radiance build, then you will just scale infinitely into the late game. It's just maybe you won't get there in some games. But obviously the lower MMR you go, the greedier you can go. So you can totally go for that in a lot of different games. Then we have Wraith King, just the typical like carry from the offlane. You can still go for the skeleton build. It's still very good. The lower, especially in a pub tier list, the lower MMR you go, the more playing this hero is acceptable because the skeletons are amazing. They're pushing the towers. You can go for Radiance and get greedy, but you don't necessarily have to. You can, obviously you have a stun, blink, all that kind of stuff. It's just obviously something where I think the higher MMR you go, the more greedy this is, the more grief it is. But because this is a pub tier list, it still definitely is viable and the win rate is still pretty good. Then next we have Pudge. And again, they didn't really touch this hero at all in the last couple patches, but it's like the other ones with all the other offlaners getting nerfed. It's kind of risen to the top. And this hero has been like A or B tier in the offlane for the last couple years. I don't think it's really going anywhere just with the way the hero works. Now, you do need to be very good at landing hooks for sure. You want to snowball in the game, but you can have pretty reliable laning stages because people always have to be wary of the hook. In certain matchups, you can get punished, but you can end up catching up in farm, usually participating in ganks and those kinds of things. It is a little bit of a niche style of play, but if you go for the Ags, you go for the Shivas, you get tanky, you can honestly be extremely, extremely hard to deal with, but then you can have other games where you feel like you're super squishy, you just die, you didn't get your items, all that kind of stuff. So it is like an all or nothing, a specialist kind of hero where you have to be good at the hero, you have to know how to land your hooks, have a good laning stage, impact in the mid game, that kind of stuff, and that can be a little bit tricky, but if you're able to do that and you're consistent with it, you can, it is a viable offlaner. It's not a meme, it's not like grief. It is more popular in the support roles, but I think if you're good at it, it is definitely an offlaner that is worth picking. It just needs, I think it needs to not be the only frontliner. That's what I would say. You need to have another tanky hero on your team that wants to go in. If you're the only like initiation or frontline or whatever, that's kind of going to be bad for you as a Pudge because yes, you're tanking stuff, but you're also doing self-damage. Do you really go for Ags in that situation? That's where it gets a little bit tricky. So that's the only time that I think it can kind of be grief. It's like, oh, our only initiation or frontline is Pudge. I think you're probably going to lose the game then. Then Undying, this hero has been on the upswing a lot in the recent like year or so. I saw this hero being played in the offlane various times and it actually having success even a few patches ago. The recent patches that came out, they buffed it, but not much. It was just like a soul rip buff and stuff. So it wasn't anything crazy, but I think the fact that it had that respawn where you can instantly come back without buying back, that's pretty cool. But also just the fact that when you do have your ultimate, when you do put down the tombstone, you just do insane amounts of damage, insane slow. You can get to like 10k HP. It's like absurd. I think the bigger thing with this hero though, is this hero very much is like a kind of offlaner where you're super tanky, you take over an area like Roche or wherever the fight is happening, but if there's a lot of mobility on the enemy team or you personally on your team don't have any stuns or initiation, again, it's kind of like Pudge in that way where it's a little bit risky because you don't do anything to like lock people down. So if you just put your tombstone, pop your ult in a specific area and the enemy can just run away and you don't have like a spirit breaker or any other kind of stuns or silencers or slows or anything else like that on your team, it's going to feel really bad to have an Undying offlane. So that's where you need to be careful. But if you have like a 4-position Spirit Breaker, like I said, or some other hero that is going in, stunning people, just having front line control and stuff like that, adding an Undying to that can just feel absurd. Or if the enemy doesn't have a lot of mobility and wherever they want to fight in the fight, like wherever they pick to fight is where it's happening as well, Undying is a great counter to that. Obviously, this hero is also really, really good against strength heroes in lane, but I don't think you're going to have a ton of strength heroes from in like the carry or even the 5 position at this point, but it doesn't matter. I think you can still have a good laning stage regardless. But right now, that's really where Undying is and how to think about the hero. I think it is very, very good in very specific situations. That's why I think if it was good in every game, it would be S tier, honestly. Then we have Death Prophet. I think this hero is a very, very good hero that could potentially even be S. I just think from the off lane, it's a little bit more greedy. You can have very good laning stages. It's very hard to lane against this hero, to be honest. But you do want to farm a lot, and you do want to get like more items. So I think from the mid lane, it's a little bit better because you do have a farm priority. You are getting your 6 earlier, so you can take towers easier. Sometimes this hero can have a little bit of an awkward like mid game stage where, yeah, you can use your first ultimate to like get a kill or push the tower. But if they bring everybody and then you're repelled and now your ultimate's down, like there's this awkward point between like 8 and 20 minutes from the off lane where what item are you really going for? Are you going for Yules? Are you going straight into like early Shivas? Like what exactly are you doing from the off lane? And you just want to be farming when you don't have your ult up. It can just feel like there's a little bit of a weird period. But if you have a great laning stage, you take towers early with your ultimate, you're coordinating around your team and you're scaling into the late game, and that happens pretty early, like you're getting to your items at 15, 20 minutes, and it's like your 3 item timing is 25, 30 minutes. If that happens on this hero, you will honestly like stomp the game because now you have this offlane core that is just destroying everything, doing insane tower damage, hard to deal with in the fights. Like you can totally solo carry games, but you just have an awkward period where it might be a little bit weird. Then we have Venge. This hero to me is all about the team. So like, this is another one where it's sort of like an Undying in a way, where I think it's a great addition if you have other things on the team. Like, you don't really need anything else. You have all the bases covered, and just adding a Venge just means that your team is insane now. That's kind of similar, I feel like, with Undying. Like, if you have initiation, you have some damage, you have a little bit of everything, adding the Undying just makes your team absurd. And that's the same thing with Venge. Like, you already have some stuns, you have good damage, you have good control, you have all the things that you want, and now just having that Venge in there for the save, for the initiation, for like the double life with the Ags is very, very good. And the problem, though, is, in a similar way with like Pudge, is like, if you're the only initiation, if you're the only front line, if you're like just jumping in with one person swapping in or whatever, and then they blow you up, and now your entire team is like running away, or they're a lot of backliners, like you have a Drow and 2 range supports, and you're the only one going in, like that can feel super bad. It just feels really awkward, because they can maybe deal with you, or they can even just ignore you. Like, oh, you swapped me in. Who even cares? We're just going to run at your teammates anyway, and there's nothing you can do. So that is why probably this hero is an S, but right now it is very good in general. Then we have Doom. This hero is great in general because Doom is very good now. Just the fact that you can't heal, you can't TP to Fountain and stuff like that, because even though you can use your items, I think it's been hanging around A, B, S tier for the last like year or so, ever since they made that change. The fact that people are now buying Midas and then selling the Midas later is also really good. People realize, oh wait, this is actually insane for the amount of value that you get out of that. People are even playing it carry in pro games. I would say that it is a little bit risky. I think in pubs, this hero might not be as good in certain situations. People can play around it a little bit better. But a lot of times, if you know what you're doing on Doom, you can secure a laning stage that is good, because another time you can get really taken advantage of in the lane sometimes. I mean, sometimes you can have a good lane, don't get me wrong, but there are certain situations where it just feels like Doom does nothing for the first 5 minutes, so that can be an issue. But if you get a good laning stage, if you know what you're doing with the creeps and stuff like that, and you have a good idea of which matchups need which creeps, and you can get your Midas and you can get off the ground and really start snowballing and being top net worth in the game, you will eventually like stop the game with your ult or double ult. I will say the one thing I want to say to everybody, PSA out there about Doom, is the Ags is a bait. Just realize Ags is bait. Don't get Ags. It's not that it's terrible. Like, it can be good, but it's a complete bait. Ags is not the impact that you think it is. Then next we have Darkseer, and this hero is good. I will always very reluctantly put it S tier or even A, and I'm saying it is very good. The pros really like it. I think it's good in a lot of different matchups against a lot of different heroes. The problem I always have with it, and I always say this, is it gives the enemy a free lane because you need your support to coordinate with you to take advantage of pushing the tower. And I just feel like the lower MMR you go, the less likely it is that you're going to have a support that knows what they're doing and is able to put the pressure on the enemy with your ion shells and stuff, and that just almost like never happens. So you're almost just forfeiting the laning stage, just hoping that you get farm up until the 20-30 minute mark, and then you get these big vac ults. And you can have good impact with that, don't get me wrong. Like, this hero can have a lot of impact. It's just, I don't love that you're just forfeiting the lane in a large part unless you're really coordinating with your support. So that, I say that every time, but I'm always going to say that every time Darkseer is good. Then B tier, we have Timbersaw, and this is a classic offlaner that's very, very good at solo carrying games, but you have to be careful because this hero can get absolutely stomped in the lane for the first few levels, first few waves. So that is what you have to be careful of, but the lower MMR you go, the less likely the enemy is going to take advantage of your weaknesses. So if you can honestly get good at just surviving for the first 5 minutes and like getting your levels and getting some farm, you can just 1v9 the game, to be honest. Like, this hero can still do that. It's just less likely to do that than it used to be. It's also not as good, even in the later portions of the game, like in higher MMRs and stuff, as it used to be, but it is still solid. That's why it's B tier. B tier isn't crap. It's just like run-of-the-mill, middle of the road. I just think it can get taken advantage of in lanes a lot. Then we have Slardar, another one that if you're snowballing, if you're able to get your blink, able to jump on people, able to be tanky, you will destroy. But then some lanes you're absolutely crushing because it's like melee versus melee and you're just destroying them outright. And then other lanes, you just feel like you can't even walk up. And that's a big issue. I think that's the biggest issue with this hero from the offlane. I was thinking, I think I removed it from the mid lane tier list. It was in my last mid lane tier list, but I just don't think it's as popular. Like, people aren't playing it mid as much as they were back then, and I looked at the win rate and pick rate, and people just aren't doing it, so that's why I didn't include it. But it's just one of these weird situations where you're kind of like a weird pseudo carry. You want to have a good laning stage, and you want to get some items because this hero like needs blink. You kind of like want your Echo Saber, you want BKB, you want like a lot of different things. I think that's the awkward part of the hero, is like you can have a weak lane at times, depending on matchup. And then if you don't get off to a good start to like get items, you need to have shard to farm the waves, and even that isn't always reliable all the time. It's just like this weird awkward stage with farming with this hero. But if you get off to a good laning stage, if you start like feeding, the enemy starts feeding you, you start feeding on the enemy, and you get your items, like you can again 1v9 the game, kind of similar to Timbersaw in a lot of ways. Also, if you're pairing it with another kind of minus armor strat in general, you can just own. Abaddon, a little bit awkward as an offlaner. I feel like Abaddon's like discount Wraith King in a way, or like it's kind of like carry from the offlane, kind of like Legion Commander, but it just, because it doesn't have the stun, yes, you are frontlining or whatever, but you don't have any good reliable stun. It's just like a purge and that's it, and you're frontlining, and you do want to go Blade Mail Radiance, but that's more of a carry build. It's just awkward. Like, you'd rather go for this kind of carry from the offlane, or even Bristleback carry from the offlane, you know, or Legion carry from the offlane, or if you're going to go for control, or you're going to even go greedy with the Blade Mail Radiance, go Kunkka, because at least you can boat somebody. Like, that isn't what Abaddon does. And then again, as this weird melee hero, if you're against melee on melee, yeah, that's really good in the lane, but then sometimes, just like Slardar, you can be taken advantage of a lot. Then Beastmaster's fallen off a lot because they nerfed this hero. This hero was broken. They nerfed the drums. They nerfed what the ags, or like what the ultimate doesn't give you like the full stacks or whatever, which was just broken before. Like, you would literally 1v9 the game. You just jump in, you just ult somebody with your ags, and you just like start clicking them for 4 billion damage. That's still good, but it's not broken like it was. I just think in general, also in pubs, Beastmaster just needs stacks, which you can stack for yourself, but it helps if your ally is stacking for you, which isn't going to happen as much. So it's B tier. It's still good. You can still do a lot of things you did before, but it's not as powerful. Same thing with Tidehunter, not as good as it once was. It was this weird awkward thing. Was this a carry? Was it tanky? Was it, what was it doing exactly? And I think people were even going more for the carry version of Tidehunter in the offlane, but that's not as good as it was anymore. And they already previously nerfed the kind of tanky version of the hero with the tanky facet. So now I think it's still good, still B tier. You can still go for those things, but it's not nearly as good as it was. Night Stalker, decent hero, but not the best. Can be taken advantage of a lot in certain portions of like from 5 to 10 minutes. Can have a good lane, but I always felt weird because I really like Night Stalker. I always felt weird about taking the nighttime early because yes, that really helps you secure your early laning stage, but then it just feels a little bit weird later. Because yes, you have your ultimate, you can get kills once you get 6, but then you have this weird downtime where like a lot of the map starts opening up, and people start ganking, and you just are relying completely on your ultimate now for that, because you have this time period where it's daytime where you're doing nothing, and that doesn't really feel great. So I never loved that. Then the other thing is, I think they nerfed the shard, which was huge. The shard was so big because you could literally just get full HP and mana in the middle of a fight when you were getting like bursted down. There was other small nerfs with the hero that just made it not as good. So it is B tier. You can still do a lot of the same things. You can have problems in the lane sometimes, but then sometimes you can stomp the lane, just take over the game completely and just kill all the supports. It can be a situation. I think this is one of those things. The lower MMR you go with this hero, you can 1v9 the game because the supports and even like backline carries or whoever just don't know how to deal with Night Stalker. Like, you can just own the game with just the vision itself and just backlining and killing everybody. Then Magnus. A decent hero. This hero was very, very good in the last patches because they were even playing more of like a carry version, even from the offlane. But that's not really as good anymore, similar to like a Tidehunter in that way. But again, Tide, Mag, these heroes, you can still reliably have these insane ultimates that really do impact the fight really well. So you can never count out a Mag from just like RPing and winning the game, or skewering people back into Fountain or whatever and winning the game, kind of like a Pudge hook in that way. That positioning ability is always going to be good. But because you're not really like right-clicking very much, your farm is just not as good as it was before, that kind of stuff. It's just middle of the road. Same thing with Earthshaker. Earthshaker can have insane impact, but you can also feel like you do nothing. Your laning stage can be bad at times. It can be good. It's another one of these like Slardar-like heroes, Night Stalker-like heroes, matchup dependent. Going for the blink, going for the ags, that can have impact. The numbers just have been nerfed a little bit, and these other heroes have risen to the top where Earthshakers. I still really like Earthshaker. I want Earthshaker to be good. I like Earthshaker mid and offlane and stuff like that. But again, it always feels better as a mid in a lot of ways because you just have a more reliable lane. You can get your bottle. You can just get your farm. You get your blink early and then transition to the ags, that kind of stuff. It just feels like more of a mid hero these days, where offlane Earthshaker feels a little bit greedier, in my opinion. Phoenix, very much a niche hero. You have to know what you're doing. I almost would rather, in a lot of ways, have this hero either, if it's going core as a mid, because then you can just secure your lane. You can even like solo kill people if they don't know what they're doing. And then in a lot of ways, that is what enables you to get like Radiance or other farms, Shivas, that kind of stuff. Offlane, it's super greedy. You can totally get away with it, but again, you can get stomped in lane, have very little impact, and in that case, it's like, why am I not just like a 5 Phoenix? You know what I mean? That's the problem. Enigma, another similar kind of thing where it's like an RP from Magnus. Like, it's good. The win rate is pretty good if you look on Dota 2 Pro Tracker, but it's not getting picked all that much. And like Black Hole, double Black Hole, that will win you the game late, but your laning stage, your mid game, this is just awkward. It's not as good as it once was like a year or two ago. It's just fine. It's just middle of the road. And then C tier, we have Dragon Knight. And I already said this, I think, in the mid and the carry tier list, but this hero's pretty much fallen off a cliff. It's not like completely terrible now, but just all of the facets aren't as good as they once were. I mean, the red one was nerfed a long time ago. The other ones just aren't as good. And it is a little bit weird. Do you want to go for the green or the blue one? Like, is the slow or the poison better? It's hard to say. I feel like it is matchup dependent, but again, especially from the off lane, you're kind of picking carry from the off lane. Like, yeah, you can go blink and you can go, you know, blink stunning and stuff like that. And you can even go for Orchid. But I just don't think it's nearly as good, especially as an offlaner. Like, just go for a Legion Commander or some other kind of like carry from the offlane. Like even Wraith King, you're blinking in, you're stunning, you're doing a similar kind of thing to Dragon Knight. But the difference is this has some push, this has some utility. Like, you have double life. This hero, it's just, what else are you really doing other than just going carry? And so that's a little bit grief. Underlord, people have been trying to bring this hero back into the meta. Like, it just feels like, oh, it's Underlord's time to shine. Like, people realize the Ags is good and the, you know, teleportation is great because it's kind of like a Dawnbreaker. I think the biggest problem with the hero, honestly, is that the ultimate takes too long. I think that's the biggest thing, is like Dawnbreaker, you're ulting right on top of a hero to save them, and you kind of like go right there, there's a stun. This, it's like, okay, I ulted into the fight, and everyone's like, oh, Underlord's here, see ya. Or you have to like ult in the shadows where they don't know that's happening. It just feels really awkward until later in the game where you get like AoE, you get bigger AoEs, you get Ags and stuff like that. Okay, well then maybe it's going to have impact, but you don't want to really be playing for that. Like, what are you really doing in the early portion of the lane and the game, and like what is happening with the hero? It just feels a little bit awkward because really in the lane, you're just like firestorming the lane, or are you going for the passive and trying to right click? Like, that's a little bit weird because you're just pushing it in, giving the enemy carrier free lane in some ways. You're just farming stacks, I guess. And then what are you doing? You're just kind of like showing up, putting the root on the ground and like ulting into the mid lane, or like doing it. It's just like a little bit awkward. Like, yeah, sure, once you get to these later portions of the game, you can have more impact. The percentage damage is a lot. Like, if you're going high ground, defending high ground, there's times this hero can be impactful, but there's like awkward situations where you feel like this Underlord does nothing, and that's kind of the issue. And then are you going for like a team oriented build? That's probably what you want to be doing, but you'd rather have some way to take advantage of the hero right-clicking in some way, right? Like, wouldn't you want to do that? But it doesn't really have that option. It feels like, unlike a Mars or a Dawnbreaker, where you can go for more right-click or carry the game in some solo kind of way, you almost can't do that at all on Underlord. You're all about the team, and just in pubs, it's not very good. Then Pango, I think this hero's better as a mid. As an off lane, you can get away with it, but you can have terrible laning stages. If you get out of the lane, if you get out of that mid-game timing, and actually get some items, you will just like own the game. You can just destroy the game, but Pango is just not reliable in that sense. It's very greedy, and you can just have like no impact for 20 minutes, honestly, if you pick this off lane sometimes. Same thing with Necro. Necro just wants to go for Radiance. Like, you just have to go for Radiance to make this hero have impact. And that's not 100% true. Like, you can go for Yules, you can go for tanky builds that don't have Radiance, but you like Radiance. You also want Boots of Travel just because movement speed is so important. Where you can go Phase, but it's like, I'd rather go Boots of Travel to just be everywhere on the map and have that movement speed constantly. So that's, I think, the awkward part of Necro is, again, very, very greedy, kind of like a Pango, even kind of like a DK, where you're playing carry from the offlane. You're playing carry from the offlane as well with Necro, just not right-click carry. And so because of that greedy nature, it doesn't really lend itself well, especially because I think of all those heroes I talked about that can get taken advantage of in a lane, Necro, you can just get absolutely dumpstered in a lane. Like, the first like 5 levels for this hero are just trash. Like, once you hit 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, yeah, you're gonna be good, but the lane is over at that point. So you just better hope you're surviving for that beginning part of the lane. Then Marcy can be decent, but again, you're kind of playing right-click carry from the offlane. You don't really have a lot of like frontline tanky, whatever. You sort of have an initiation, like kind of this mini initiation, but not really. I don't know. It's a little bit awkward from the offlane. I think that's Marcy's problem is it a support? Is it an offlane? Is it a carry? What is this hero? I think that's the problem. It just doesn't do any of those things amazing, but it kind of does all of them pretty decently. And that's, I think, the big issue. Then Primal Beast. It's a really weird hero. It is tanky. It can have decent impact where you're constantly fighting, but if you don't take advantage of the constantly fighting thing, then what are you doing on this hero? You just rather have a different hero. You know what I mean? Like, you'd rather have Axe. You'd rather have Centaur. You'd rather have a big ult in Mars. Like, the ult is fine. It's not until you get, like, super late in the game where you have, like, you have, like, double ult, basically. You have an ult that lasts forever. You have, like, Shivas where you're doing ridiculous amounts of damage. Like, it's really weird in that sense that I think especially in pubs, if you're not taking advantage of what this hero does well, it's going to be hard. Plus, from the offlane, you're not getting those items. You are fighting, but it's like a delayed time till you can fight. I feel like it's better as a mid where you just secure farm and then you go around ganking. That's kind of the thing. Bat Rider has come back into the meta. The win rate and the pick rate is a little bit better, where this hero used to just be F tier as a core for the longest time. It's kind of a little bit better now with the changes to sticky napalm and stuff, but it's just not that good. And so we'll see over the course of, like, I think the next 6 months to a year, if they change it again or whatever, if this hero, people realize, oh, wait, it's actually terrible. Or I think just the fact that it has a decent win rate and is getting picked a little bit, there is a lot of potential for this hero to kind of, like, rocket up to be a S tier even. I mean, we're kind of seeing that again with Death Prophet, where this hero was gone for a while. They keep buffing it or changing it, and then it just rocketed up to being very good. Bat Rider has the potential, I think, just the fact that it's C, to be very good in the next 6 months. We'll just have to see what happens, but just be on the lookout for potential Bat Rider having some impact in the meta, even though I think it's C right now. Then Visage, just not as good as it was like a year ago when it was really, really broken, or 6 months ago, whenever that was. It is pretty good. Don't get me wrong. You can still play it. You can still have similar kinds of impact. You're just not snowballing the game and doing insane amounts of damage with Soul Assumption like you were. You're not just as good of a hero in general as you were, but you can still play it. It's still a cheese hero that is effective. Then for D tier, Lycan's one of those weird ones where Lycan is always just like a step down below Beastmaster, but again, because Beastmaster has a stun and has this more like control aspects, Lycan doesn't really have that. There are things about the hero that are good, don't get me wrong, and you can stomp pubs with it. I do think it is kind of playing a right-click hero in a way, because if you just are able to free run at people and just do insane damage, you can just own the game. And if you have a good carry where your Ags is good, like that you can pair with that, you can really own the game. But it's few and far between. It has to be the right situation, and you are sort of playing carry from the offlane, where Legion is also a carry from the offlane. Wraith King also is. Like, these other heroes also can kind of be a carry, and they're not as one-dimensional as Lycan, and that's the big issue. Like, there's no stun on the hero. There's not and if you're going for the, you know, I'm going to get the ancient camp creep thing, is that really that good? I feel like that's just not as good. Like, there was a time when they introduced that was good. It hasn't been good for a while now. Then Brewmaster, kind of an awkward hero. If you're a good Brewmaster player, you can definitely have success with it, but it's just not that great. And even I feel like with the power creep, I feel like they just need to make this hero's like ultimate better in terms of like the actual brewlings, because like there's a TA on the team and she just like cleaves through all of them. They all die in like 3 seconds, you know. That's like Brewmaster. That's the problem. Spirit Breaker, just more of like a support. I feel like offlane Spirit Breaker just feels awkward. What are you really doing with the with that position necessarily? Are you getting the farm? Is that farm having impact? It's hard to really say. Plus, I think they nerfed the ability to just clear through waves with your ultimate or with your charge. And so that's the big problem with having this hero actually as a core, is that there's no good way to farm. CK, super, again, carry like Lycan, carry from the offlane. They're trying to force this weird like facet with the silence and the disarm and the break or whatever. We'll see if that can end up becoming something good. I kind of hope it does, because that's interesting, but I don't know if there's any actual good way to make that viable. Then Clockwork, I think it's a decent hero. The only thing that makes this hero able to be offlane is the change where you can eat the chainmails. If you can potentially do that and get farm and get to a point where you have like 3 or 4 good items and then just eat a ton of armor and get huge, like that can work. So that's why it's D tier. But if it didn't have that, it would still be F tier and more of a support. So that's the weird problem. It's like it's still not a great farmer. I think, didn't they like make the battery assault do even less damage to creeps now too? So it's like you can't farm. So the only way to make it an offlaner is to have farm and to get those chainmails that you're eating, but you can't really do that anymore. So anyway, that's why it's weird. It's D. It's kind of a funny hero, but whatever. Wind Ranger, again, like a Lycan or whatever, carry from the offlane. Just very weird to have a ranged hero like this that has an unreliable stun and is squishy at times. But you could totally pick it and carry the game, but just it's a little bit grief. Same thing with Nature's Prophet, a little bit grief, especially since they nerfed it to be like to not have the one creep that pushes everything. That was even kind of weird in the past anyway, because you're kind of playing carry from the offlane. Now, maybe if you went like the support heal with the sprout thing, it would work, but even then, it's not great. But people are still picking it with some success. That's why I put it D tier, but just be wary. Then Veno's like okay right now. Some people are saying that Veno's good. I don't know. I hate Veno offlane, honestly, in pubs. Like, I'm sure there are times in higher MMR pubs or maybe even the pros where this hero can be effective in lane and snowball the game and have auras and be annoying. But to be honest, for the most part, in most pubs, you're just not going to take advantage of that coordination that you need to have with your team. And eventually, it's going to be 20 plus minutes, and you're going to be a Veno where they jump you and they kill you in 3 seconds, and all you do is click R. So you might as well be a 5-position Veno. Like, honestly, that's pretty much the long and short of it. Viper can be good, obviously, with dominating the lane. But then transitioning out of that, again, you're just playing carry from the offlane, and you don't have a reliable stun. You don't have any good movement speed. You don't have any initiation, all that kind of stuff. Same thing with Razor. It's like you're kind of just going anti-carry. You can have a decent laning stage, and then from there, you're just the carry. So, again, no team fight initiation, no tankiness, none of this stuff. It's just super greedy, which, thankfully, they were kind of transitioning the game in this weird way to being, oh, carry from the offlane, carry from the offlane. Not that that's not something that is still sort of semi-viable, but thankfully, now real offlaners have kind of come back in the meta a lot. And then Broodmother is like a cheese pick, but it's like barely viable now. I think overall this hero is not very good. And from an offlane, again, a carry from the offlane, that is a cheese pick. That's kind of weird. Then for F tier, we have Dazzle. This hero's dead as a core. It's just like completely gone. Faceless Void, just don't pick this hero. It was never good. I don't care what you say. The other facet, the time zone or whatever, was never good. I never saw it have success. It just seemed like it was always trash. People were forcing it because it was unique, and now it's trash, and it always was trash. Sand King, they obliterated my boy. He's completely dead, I think, as an offlaner. It's just, he can be taken advantage of in so many different ways. I don't think he's that good. His win rate is like 30% or something like that. Just not great. Tiny offlane. This hero's gotten worse overall. People are only picking it as an offlaner because it was so good as a carry, so good as a mid, just good as a hero in general, and now it's kind of gone. I could even maybe take it off the list, but it is still there. Same thing with Winter Wyvern. I could take that off the list. It's just like a worse version of Winter Wyvern. Hasn't really been relevant as an offlane for a long time, I feel like. Bounty Hunter, not as good as it once was, especially from the offlane. Just don't pick it. I think it was always a bad offlaner in general in most pubs. So don't pick it. I think you're just griefing. Like, you just rather have any other hero. Terrorblade, not an offlaner anymore. Go away. Alchemist, not an offlane. Like, stop it. You're not farming and feeding people ags. You're not doing that. Go away. Lone Druid, this hero is just like even worse. These cheese heroes are in even worse of a spot than like a lot of the other ones, especially from the offlaner as an offlaner. Nyx Assassin, not an offlane at all. I could honestly just remove Nyx and Winter Wyvern from the list, to be honest, because Nyx is dead. You can't kill the creeps anymore. You can't be an offlaner. Hasn't been one for a while. That's going away. Winter Wyvern's not really an offlaner, like, since the Universal Hero nerf stuff. And then Tusk, just more of a support, not an offlaner anymore. I mean, when Tusk is very, very good as a 4 or whatever, you can potentially pick it as an offlane, but it's more of a utility hero anyway. Like, you don't want to be going for that Deso and stuff, the one-shot, like, clicking people build. So that's why it can't really... Because if you wanted to be an offlaner, you'd probably want to go for that, but that feels really awkward. And then if you're not going for that, you would just rather be a 4. Like, it's similar to Spirit Breaker, but at least a Spirit Breaker offlane, like, there is something that you can do. Like, you can just buy the same items from offlane. It just, are you getting them? Where this means you're just going a whole different build with Tusk. So anyway. And then lastly, we have another one, Omni. People are saying it's a carry. People are saying it's good offlane. Is it good or is it a meme? I see the win rate's not bad. Is it like A tier? Is it just like, oh, this is an offlaner, it's A tier? Or are people just forcing it and it's not great? I don't know what to think about Omni. Let me know if you've played it, if you've seen it, if you've had success with it, if you think it's bad. I'm not sure what to think about this hero, so I'm putting good or meme again as an offlaner. I think it's some people saying, like I said, carry. Offlane is typical, maybe support. It's just a weird hero right now in general, but people are saying it's good. I don't know if I believe that. And that is the offlane tier list for patch 7.39b. As always, guys, if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.